Good evening. Today is Sunday, February 1st, 2026. I'm Rich Stevens, and this is the Cold Take. What you're about to hear is news from this week, taken only from primary sources like press conferences and court documents. You can find those sources and attribution for every story at thecoldtake.com. Beginning today, February 1st, 2026, TSA will require that any state-issued ID used for travel be Real ID compliant. The government moved quickly to implement the Real ID Act, passed in 2005 and only took 20 years to enforce the law that passed as the result of the 9/11 Commission report. But don't worry, if you don't have a Real ID compliant state ID, you can use a passport, permanent resident card, or even a Canadian provincial driver license. Don't have one of those? You can go online and pay $45. When you arrive at the airport, simply show the TSA your receipt and they will perform a real-time background check based on... No, they didn't explain that part. I feel safer already. Thursday, January 29th, border czar Tom Homan spoke on his first 3 days on the ground in Minneapolis. He said, quote, "Jurisdictions that refuse to cooperate with federal immigration authorities are sanctuaries for criminals. Sanctuary cities are sanctuaries for criminals and endangers the residents of the community." He noted that the Minnesota state prison system under the Department of Corrections has been honoring detainers and expressed appreciation. He expressed how much easier and safer it is to bring a person into ICE custody from a jail or prison than to get them from the street. He spoke about funding and organized protests and promised to prosecute crimes related to attacks on law enforcement. He was questioned about prioritizing violent criminals over people whose only crime is being in the country illegally. In response, he said that while targeted operations are focused on aliens who have committed additional crimes, anyone who is in the country without authorization is on the table. Staying in Minneapolis, a new video of ICE protester Alex Preddy has been released. A week before he was fatally shot by Border Patrol agents, video shows Preddy cursing and spitting at agents before kicking out the taillight of one of their vehicles. The agents then exit the vehicle and engage in a brief physical altercation with Preddy before letting him go. You can see that video at thecoldtake.com. Friday, January 30th, Don Lemon was arrested for his participation in the disruption of a St. Paul, Minnesota church service. Lemon entered the church with a group of ICE protesters. Despite being asked to leave by the pastor, the group shouted, standing in the aisles and not allowing the service to continue. Many online were critical of the arrest, citing First Amendment rights. I'm Rich Stevens, and I'm the Cold Take, I'm the Cold Take, I'm the Cold Take, I'm the Cold Take. Seriously, I need you to like this video, hit the subscribe button, share this with your friends. Things are getting weird over here. Thursday, January 28th, Florida Attorney General James Uthmire announced that the state's Surgeon General pulled the license of a nurse in the state. The labor and delivery nurse posted a video saying she hoped Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt suffers catastrophic injury giving birth. That video went viral around the same time that a separate series of videos of a nurse at Virginia Commonwealth University went live. In them, she suggested attacking ICE with syringes of paralysis drugs, poison ivy, or catfishing them into dates to put laxatives into their food. VCU released a statement that she has been fired. You can watch all of that at thecoldtake.com. Tuesday, January 27th, the NTSB held a board meeting to discuss the mid-air collision between PSA Airlines and a military helicopter in Washington, D.C. last year. Their report blames systemic failures, citing airspace design and risk management by both the FAA and the Army. They noted that neither aircraft was equipped with collision avoidance technology capable of effective alerts at such a low altitude. Had the airplane been equipped with a better system, the crew would have had 59 seconds to avoid contact with the helicopter. The NTSB issued 33 safety recommendations to the FAA and 8 to the Army. Friday, January 30th, Canadian actress, comedian, and screenwriter Catherine O'Hara passed away. She starred in Home Alone, Beetlejuice, the sequel Beetlejuice, and Dick Tracy.
Hey, what is this, news? I got news for you. News from beyond the grave.
No, thank you.
Okay, Rich, you're lost. See you soon.
More recently, she starred in 80 episodes of Schitt's Creek. Catherine O'Hara was 71 years old. Moving over to politics, Thursday, January 29th, Senator Amy Klobuchar announced that she will run for governor of Minnesota when Tim Walz vacates the position a year from now. In a video posted to X, she vowed to end fraud in the state and work with Republicans to get things done. Her Republican opponent and current Speaker of the Minnesota House, Lisa Demure, released her own video. She asserted that Klobuchar would be the same as a third term for current Governor Tim Walz, and built a website, waltzthirdterm.com. Wednesday, January 28th, Florida Governor Ron Desantis announced that Florida will participate in the federal Education Freedom Tax Credit Program. Created as part of Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill, this law is a brain teaser. If your state opts in like Florida did, you can personally donate to any scholarship granting organization or SGO. Your donation, up to $1,700, is then returned to you in the form of a tax credit. This is different than a deduction, and if you'd like a video about how federal income tax works, let me know in the comments. You can't earmark the money, pay private school tuition, or direct the money to a specific school. Anyone can donate this money, essentially transforming tax liability into a donation to the scholarship programs. The scholarships themselves are available only to students from households earning 300% or less of the median income in the county. For what it's worth, as convoluted as this is, the federal government is going to give you back up to $1,700 in donations to scholarship programs. So if you can float that money until you file your tax return, you're essentially redirecting that money away from the federal government and into a scholarship program in your state. You can read more at thecoldtake.com. Wednesday, January 28th, New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani held a press conference on the city budget. He alleged that the city has a $12 billion deficit, that former Mayor Eric Adams did it intentionally, and that the people of New York City were deceived about it. He also blamed Andrew Cuomo for a $21 billion difference between what city residents pay in taxes to the state and what the city receives back in funding. Eric Adams pushed back, saying that budgets passed by his administration went through the city council. He also said that when he was the mayor, the city's credit rating was the highest in history. He maintained that he left $8 billion in cash reserves. He blames Mamdani's campaign promises of more free services in New York City. You can see the full press conference and Eric Adams' responses at thecoldtake.com. The Senate did not pass the SAVE Act this week. They passed some of the funding bills, but the one related to DHS was not passed. Instead, the Senate passed a 2-week continuing resolution to renegotiate the details of DHS and ICE funding. In world news, Monday, January 26th, the Israeli Defense Forces announced that the last hostage held in Gaza has been recovered. Ron Gavili was a 24-year-old police officer who was killed during the Hamas terrorist attack on October 7, 2023. On the following day, events were held for Holocaust Remembrance Day. Ambassador Mike Waltz spoke to the UN, saying that anti-Semitism is on the rise, and the UN must do more to combat it. On January 13th, the American embassy in Iran urged any Americans to leave the country. 10 days later, on the 23rd, the State Department announced that it is imposing sanctions on 9 Iranian vessels. On Thursday, January 28th, President Trump posted to X and Truth Social announcing that an American armada is moving into waters near Iran. He referenced Operation Midnight Hammer and urged Iran to, quote, make a deal. In finance, Wednesday, January 28th, Fed Chair Jerome Powell spoke following the board's 2-day meeting. He said that the economy expanded at a solid pace last year and comes into 2026 on a solid footing. Job gains remain low, but the unemployment rate has shown signs of stabilization and inflation remains somewhat elevated. The board chose not to move interest rates this cycle after 2 previous reductions. He said that consumer spending has been resilient and business fixed investment has expanded while the housing sector remains weak. Donald Trump took to Truth Social to push back, saying that with the influx of tariff money and the lowered inflation risk, the Fed should be cutting rates more aggressively. If you'd like me to do a video about how the Fed works and what the Fed rate really is, drop me a note in the comments. Wednesday, January 28th, President Trump held an event to speak about the Trump accounts for children. The tax-advantaged accounts allow up to $5,000 a year in contributions from parents, but no limit for philanthropists who wish to donate to the program. Michael and Susan Dell donated $6.125 billion to assist the first 25 million accounts. The government will seed the account with $1,000, and a number of companies have pledged to augment or match that contribution. Bank of America, Chipotle, Steak and Shake, and Nvidia are on the full list that you can see at thecoldtake.com. Markets were mixed. The Dow Jones Industrial Average and NASDAQ continued to gradually slide, with the Dow losing 206 points, falling to 48,892. The NASDAQ fell 40 points, closing at 23,461. The S&P 500 added 24 points, ending the week at 6,939. Gold futures, traded on the stock market, continued to climb, closing the trading week out at $5,067 per ounce. However, on the spot market, where you can buy and sell the metal itself, both gold and silver fell sharply on Friday. Gold dropped $489, and silver, which had climbed to an all-time high of $115 per ounce, fell to $85 by the end of the day. I use kitco.com for real-time spot prices. And in sports, Thursday, January 29th, rookie NBA players and former college teammates Cooper Flagg and Con Knappel faced off in a highly anticipated game. Flagg scored 49 points to break the record for the highest single-game points total by a teenager in NBA history. But it was Knappel's 34 points and tough defense late that helped him lead the Charlotte Hornets to a 121-123 win over Flagg and the Mavericks. And finally, at the Australian Open Finals this weekend, Elena Rybakina beat Aryna Sabalenka to win her second Grand Slam title. Born in Russia but representing Kazakhstan, Rybakina has twice lost in the finals to Sabalenka in recent years. On the men's side, Carlos Alcaraz overcame Novak Djokovic in 4 sets to win the Australian Open. He's now the youngest player to complete a career Grand Slam. And like it or not, that's what happened. I'm Rich Stevens, and this has been The Cold Take.